Hello, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of your Frederish podcast. This is your homeboy Gary. One more time. Tell me, how are you doing? How's everything going for you today? Well, TGIF, thank God it's Friday. One more weekend. Apparently sunny, hot, at least here south of Brazil. Well, guys, today's topic is one of my favorite, I would say. Not only because of the topic, because of the content, but also because for actually one of the very first times I can speak like totally relating to it. Yes, I am. You've already read the title of this episode, so you've already realized. You probably already realized I fit to the so-called Generation Y, aka Millennials. Yeah, so just in case you don't know what a millennial is, what the Generation Y is, Generation Y, according to my researches, according to Google, comprises of people born between 1982 to 1994. Well, I was born in 1989, so I am a 100% pure blood millennial. So what is it that this generation, my generation, is so interesting? Before we get into it, let me just ask you what I always do. Have you already gone for your cup of coffee, beer, water, whatever it takes for you to relax? All right, so we're all on the same page. We're all chilling now. Let's start talking about it. The first thing that crosses my mind when I inevitably make a comparison between generations, like my parents' generation, the so-called Generation X, and my grandparents' generation, that is called the baby boomers. Okay, I don't even know if this relates to Brazil. Actually, the baby boomers is something more American, but I would say let's keep it this way, right? And of course, the upcoming generation, that is the one that is reigning right now, so to say, that is the Generation Z. Okay, so I can help but notice a big difference between my parents' generation and Generation Z, the upcoming, like the next generation after Generation Y. Okay. And one could wonder, hey, isn't it normal having differences, having like main social, and habit and conceptual differences between generations? Yeah, maybe yes. I mean, probably yes. If we take a look at our grandparents, they're different from our parents in terms of concepts, of the way they understand things, the way they live their lives, the moral dilemmas, the way they enjoy life and things, party, for example. No matter where you're listening me from right now, probably the generation of your grandparents is way different from the generation of your parents. Okay, but and also I see this difference between Generation Z and of course the main topic of the day, that is Generation Y, my generation. Okay, and why is it that I think, why do I think that, what is the reason behind this bigger than usual difference between my generation, Generation Y, the Millennials, and Generation Z, and of course our predecessors, Generation X? Well, the main difference is one little thing called internet. Not only internet, but also interconnected world. Okay, my parents were born and raised in a world where, well, their telecommunications were there, but they weren't what they are. I'm not gonna say today. They weren't even close to what they have been in the past 20 years. Okay, 15 years to be more precise, as of the arrival of the smartphones. Okay, so yeah, I mean, like, okay, the generation Y, my generation, has not only grown, and risen, so to say, during the upcoming of internet, smartphones, social medias, but in between these like, for example, if you talk to someone in their early 30s today or late 30s, so millennial, they will most likely remember what things were like when smartphones didn't exist, when internet existed, but it was nothing even remotely close to what it is today, right? I do remember that. Okay, also the world before social medias. Okay, if you talk to someone in their early 20s, mid 20s, that is a generation, a Gen Z. I read an article about it a few weeks ago, or last week. Anyways, so if you ask a Generation Z, a Gen Z, a 20-year-old, like, what is the world like? She wouldn't have an idea. Like, they probably don't have memories of the world before YouTube, the world before smartphones, before social medias. Okay, and this is where the main difference starts, popping up. All right. If you talk to Generation X, on the other hand, my parents, our parents, they of course also live this change, right? And this I'm gonna call this breaking point, okay? That is like something between 2003, 2000. For me specifically, I would consider the arrival of YouTube. Okay, I remember vividly. Year was 2005 when I first heard and saw this little thing called YouTube. I remember, having my mind blowing, like, what? Oh my God, what's going on in front of my eyes? Because, well, let me just tell you something. If you're in your 20s, that will be interesting. I don't mean to teach or lecture you in any aspect, don't get me wrong, okay, but let me just share this with you guys. I would like to listen to it if the roles were inverted, but before the arrival of YouTube, the way we would consume music, movies, and media content, okay, streams, the streaming thing before these, platforms, these online platforms, was way different. Well, I'm not gonna try to explain how different it was because, well, you guys are very connected. You guys saw movies. You guys probably heard that from your parents and uncles. But long story short, it wasn't even remotely similar to what it is today. The accessibility to digital content wasn't even remotely close to what it is today. All right. So I remember vividly, like, when there was a new song coming up, we had to keep our heads up to the radio to listen to it. Okay, maybe even record it on a cassette tape. Okay, if you were rich, I mentioned that before in other episodes, but if you were kind of a wealthy or wealthier than the average, okay, you already had internet 20 years ago, but most people didn't. I didn't, as I shared before with you guys, if you listen to the episode about the Gen Zers, by the way. Anyways, so today, the moment you get in contact with a song, for example, and you can repeat and write down at least a piece of it on Google, boom, it's there. You've already got it. It's that's all you need. You don't even have to pay or anything, right? Back in the days, I remember buying CDs, of course, counterfeit CDs. Counterfeit, for those of you who don't know, counterfeit is what we call pirata. Okay, so the counterfeit CDs for $5 were a thing when I was when I was a teenager, and that's pretty much how we would listen to music. Okay, movies, you would only be able to watch a movie if you had money to go to a cinema. I didn't even have money, and of course, cinema in my town, so the only option was buying the DVD. Okay, counterfeit, of course, most of the times counterfeit. But in my own defense, it was because I was very poor, not because because the moment I started making more money, I started working. I started buying only original CDs and DVD. God is my witness here, guys. But anyways, so okay, this was like the first wave of the change, basically. The in my opinion, as far as I understand. Okay, guys, this is my perception here from this change of generations, from this clash of generations, basically. That's what I'm trying. That's my whole point. That's what I'm trying to. That's the point I'm trying to make here. That this clash between generation Y and generation Z, right? So that's it. That was the first wave. The thing of, oh hey, now I have a place online so I can listen to whichever song I want to, right? I remember using YouTube to practice French. I was learning French back in the days, and of course English to practice some, to listen to interviews of people in English and practice. So yeah, that's it. But then a few years later, like let's fast forward 4 or 5 years there, okay, Orkut and Facebook, okay, and the next thing we knew, everybody was connected, on what we call today a kind of a social media, right? First was Orkut in Brazil, but then Facebook came and totally destroyed it, I would say, because it doesn't exist anymore. All right, okay, so, and then next thing we knew, people started walking around, because until when I first got to Facebook, the only way we could do to get into it, to log in, was through a computer, okay? But then even a few years later, 2 years later, people started walking around with this little device, little technological device called smartphone, which you probably have one on your hands right now. This is maybe the way you're listening to my voice right now. I'm recording it in the computer, but I'm looking at it at a smartphone right now. So yeah, today is just damn common. Everyone has one, but I didn't. My first smartphone came in 2015, I would say. Yeah, that's when I got to WhatsApp. That's when I first managed to log in social medias, check social medias through my cell phone. Okay, so yeah, my whole point here is we saw that change happening in front of our eyes. We weren't born into it like the Gemsers were. Okay, guys, just big parenthesis here. I'm not just saying it by any means to say which generation is best. This is totally not my point here. This would even be stupid if I would do that, if I would go that way. But yeah, my point here is we saw that change. Every now and then I start reminiscing, like bringing memories from the days when I was a teenager. There was in the neighborhood, we would have every afternoon, every end of the afternoon, beginning of evening, we would gather on the street to, talk bullshit as teenagers, play some soccer, skate a little bit if possible, make a fire and sit around it like 6 or 7 boys and start saying shit, making jokes, and laughing, being teenagers, being kids. And of course, if you're in your early 30s or mid 30s like me, you remember that in order to get everyone gathered together, you would have to go to their houses and start shouting, like, hey man, come out, we're here on the street, So today I can't help but wonder, like, what would it be like today? It wouldn't be necessary to be shouting in front of the houses unless, of course, for fun, because, well, there would be a WhatsApp group, yeah, and then we would just check our cell phone and say, hey, boys are in the street, mom, I'm going there. Or maybe we wouldn't even do that. This is the point that scares me the most, to be honest. I want to talk more about it. So now I'm gonna start theorizing. Okay, this is theory, but I have the impression that the new generation, the youngsters, the 20-year-olds, don't do what we used to do 20 years ago. That is, sit on a sidewalk, or even make a fire. I don't recommend that, not anywhere. Be careful with that, of course, but we would do that back in the days. I have the impression that they don't do that anymore. And I kind of fear, I have kids. I don't want them to be. I recognize the importance of technology, of course, and the biggest, I'm pro technology. I'm pro, future of things. But on the other hand, I see how healthy it was having the human contact, the physical contact, as a kid, as a teenager, as a young adult, right? And I kind of fear for this generation, for the new generations. I mean, not only Z, because the Generation Z is already grown up, but the ones after it, I think it's called Alpha. Yeah, anyways. This was something really healthy at the end of the day. It wasn't perfect. There was a lot of risks we would run. And today, I have to be honest, I would have to prepare, one extra taking care, strategy in order to allow my kids to be on the streets, and I wouldn't just let them be like a lot like my parents allowed me to, okay? I'm not criticizing our parents, but times were different. In fact, it's not only the difference between smartphones, having technology versus not having technology, but the word has become a little more dangerous, in terms of I didn't want to use this word, but like kidnapping, for example, we wouldn't even hear about it years ago, and today, I'm not saying it's a common thing, but it's something that exists, I would be very concerned if my daughter would be on the street, for example, talking late in the night, especially if at the age of 13, 12, which was my case, Yeah, that's the whole point, But I have to be honest, I am happy for being born the year I was born, for belonging to the generation I belong to, for having witnessed the change of the difference between living before internet, the way it is, right? When I say internet, the way it is important, okay? Internet is way older than me, of course, but the way it is, the internet. And I'm not even gonna say internet 3.0. I forgot the name of the new technology, the Internet of Things. No, Internet 2.0, like the internet, like of the social medias, of YouTube, these things I'm relating right now. So knowing the word before and after, allows us, I can notice that on me, of course, and of course on people my generation, that this has brought to us a possibility of living life to its fullest, I would say, okay? If it is to be sitting on a couch in front of TV, watching TV or playing games, cool. If you gotta go out, go fishing, go play, go out to play soccer with friends, go out for a run, which I will in a couple of minutes from now. As soon as I finish recording this, I'll go for my cardio session. That's it, okay? Of course, new generations are good at that, at exercising, at taking care of their body and health. I mentioned that on the episode about the Gen Zers, okay? Yeah, but unfortunately, they didn't have the opportunity our generation had. And I think that on our hands basically lies a big responsibility, because probably there won't be any more, for lack of a better word, drastic changes like that, like strong changes, breaking points. Severe is a negative word, but the intense breaking point, all right? Notorious breaking point, notorious change, as it was in somewhere between the year 2001 and 2009. Okay, our generation lived that and witnessed, on the front seats basically of this theater called world. And that's it for this episode, guys. That's all I had to share today. Let me hear your comments here. I wait for you in the next episode next week. Have a lovely and blissful weekend. Bye bye.